Hey, Mando Fandos! Welcome back to the Mando Fan Show. This is episode 8, and we're going to call this one Taika One for the Team.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
John's best jokes are these episode titles.
Those are my best?
Yeah, I think so.
Yikes. So people who didn't like that are like, well, I'm done with that guy. Yeah. No, but thanks so much for joining us today, guys. We're going to be talking about Chapter 8 of The Mandalorian, which is called Redemption. A little bit more boring of a title than mine, I think, but that's okay. The episode, though, was not boring, but joining me, as always, is James and Lacey. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Wrapping up the Mando show.
Yes.
I'm good.
Lacey just gave a wave. Yeah, there she is. Okay. And our special guest this week has been on the Resistance broadcast about 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think.
Pre-Last Jedi, right?
And yes,
Yeah.
and at that time you were just starting a podcast with your buddies about movies and TV, and now it's really become one of the top viewed TV, movie, and pop culture podcasts out there from Lights, Camera, Barstool. Jeff Lowe, what's up, Jeff?
Not much, yeah. How's it going? It has been a long time. That's kind of, and I've lost my voice. I told you guys pre-pop, but now I will tell you mid-show. My voice is shot. I was sick, but yeah, much simpler time the last time I was on this pre-Last Jedi. It just
This is pre-me. I didn't exist.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. This is different show. Yeah, it was. Star Wars is very different now. 2.5 years later, almost 3.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because I think about Star Wars always goes canon like BBY, ABY, and now it almost has to be before TLJ, after TLJ. It's like the culture of fandom. Whether you love TLJ or not, now I do. I still do, even though some of the fans are starting to get to me. But it's just a funny, like you said, that is funny, because back then we were all just like, everything is great in Star Wars in summer of 2017. And then the toxicity happened. But anyway, we are here to talk about The Mandalorian, which everyone seems to be liking for the most part, so that's a good thing. Now, what we do to start off the show, to warm things up, the Pedro Pascal face scale, which is a little different now because we've seen his face on the show. Spoiler alert. If you're watching this, you already know, though.
It was rough, though.
It was banged up. It was a bad angle, like when you take your photo from below.
Yes.
Like, it's just never a good look.
No.
But needless to say, we go 0 to 10 here. Halves aren't included, and then we give our average, and of course throw it to our patrons. So I'm going to start off. I'm ending this season never tapping into the 9s, guys, but this one ties my 2 Deborah Chow episodes at 8.5. I really liked it a lot. I like the humor, I like the action, I like the shots, and of course I like the end, which we'll get into later. But Jeff, what did you give this episode on the Pedro scale?
I'll toss out a 9. I would say it's hard. So I have not disliked any of the episodes, which is I guess I'm not on the cynical end, but I'm surprised looking back on it that I liked every single one. This one's definitely up there. The way they wrapped up the story was fantastic, but again, it still stands on its own, where it's enjoyable for the story of what it is without knowing the context of the rest of the season. I love Taika Waititi. He had his hands all over this thing. His special little touches, whether it's What We Do in the Shadows or Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, like you could just tell, even the way they started it out with the troopers, it was so perfect Taika, and the best way to end it, and where you're satisfied but wanting so much more without being disappointed that we didn't get things answered, which is kind of crazy, because this is now the 3rd consecutive TV show, but Succession, Watchmen, and now this, where a season finale I haven't been disappointed, and I feel like this year was defined in TV by, and I'm not a huge Thrones person, but people being disappointed in Thrones, and now, like, I don't know, for me, I don't know, finales, they've been great, so I can't complain on that end.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, finales are always a point of drama with fans, because everyone has their preconceived notions going in. I mean, who knows? Maybe because this is just a season finale, some people are like, well, we'll see what happens and how it goes. But yeah, good points there. James, what did you give this episode?
So, Jeff, I know
That's
you normally
not a good start.
yeah, I know you don't normally like keep up with this or whatever, but I'm usually pretty positive about this stuff too. But I was actually a little bit let down on this episode. My highest rated episode was 6 with an 8.5. The next one was an 8.5. episode 7, and I thought this one was going to be an 8.5 or higher, and 7.5 for me.
Okay.
It lands somewhere around the first episode for me. Just there were a couple things in it that it's not even like the story or the direction that it went. I think just a couple things like mistakes, almost continuity-wise and things. Like I kept being pulled out of the episode. So we'll talk a little bit about that stuff. But yeah, 7.5. Still a good score for the season overall, though.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, Lacey, where did you sit on this one? 11, 12?
I loved it. I gave it a 9.5. I think I tied it with episode 3, which was my other favorite from the season, which was Deborah Chow's first episode.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it, and I've said this before, but if I'm watching a TV episode and I'm like anxious of what's going to happen, that means it's a good episode for me. Like if I'm not bored. So
Sure.
I felt that the whole episode. I didn't know where it was going, so I gave it a 9.5.
I mean, you're right though about the anxiety part of it. Like, I'll get into it later.
That's how I know it's good. Like when I hear people go, "Oh, that was so great," and if I feel anxious, then that must mean that it's good.
I mean, people like cops wear bulletproof vests because that's your highest point of target. And IG-11's wearing Baby Yoda right in the center of his chest. I'm like, what are you doing?
And then he's
like,
spinning around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to start the episode where they're punching him, which we'll get into this, like that immediately, I was like, out of the gate, stressed out.
I wasn't happy about that. Yeah. All right. So for the four of us, that averages out to an 8.6, a very healthy, very positive score for Taika Waititi, written by Jon Favreau, to end out season 1. To Jeff's point, sometimes season finales leave people, wanting more than they were expecting, and it looks like for us anyway, it's up there. So, Lacey, our patrons, we always ask our patrons what they scored on the 0 to 10 Pedro scale. What did they average out on Chapter 8?
So surprisingly, there were a lot of 10s again. 10s, 11s.
That's not surprising. Yeah.
It is, because there were some episodes that there were a lot of 6s. This was one of those episodes that everyone was like, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Wow, okay.
They said a 9. Average,
9, all right.
Average 9?
which is high for them.
Yeah, all right. Very good. I'm glad everyone liked it. It's one less thing to argue about, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, now remember, guys, if you want to be featured on the Mando Fan Show, we are going to have one more episode, which we're not confirming when we're going to do this because it's not an urgent thing, but we're going to recap season 1 at some point in the next week or two. Just hashtag Mando Fando with your thoughts on the season overall over the coming week, and we'll grab your tweets and get them on the show. Just like this person here, which was James at Slow Focus. And he said, I laughed, I cried, I kissed IG-11 goodbye. So short and sweet. Aww. But yeah. I think, we could probably confirm finally this time, James, that IG-11 will not be returning to a galaxy far, far away.
He pulled a Terminator.
Yeah.
Even though my reason for him coming back was that he was never compared to IG-88. And yet he still has never been compared to IG-88 in the show.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
I was teased, but here's my thing. Well, Nick Nolte, alien, dead. Big dead. Big not coming back. But
gone.
That line of
big not coming back.
Yeah, that the IG unit, maybe that like certain make could just have Taika's voice. Like, so I'm not gonna I haven't ruled out the idea that we may still hear Taika Waititi voicing IG droids.
Oh, that's fair.
Which I guess that's kind of cutting corners, but So I'm still kind of on the fence because, like you said, they made that joke about being compared to IG-88. Where was the reference? I need that. Like I want to hear that because I need to be fed that nonsense fan service. I want to hear them reference IG-88. So I'm still waiting. I'm gonna hold out hope.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a good point. He could just be the universal voice of that, just kind of like how Tamir Morrison became all the clone troopers in a way. Okay, now guys, if you also want to be on the show and you're a patron, you can speed your way to the top like Todd over here did. He's an average fan of The Mandalorian. Todd DeGrossier. Todd said 9 out of 10 for me. I laughed, I cried. Everyone's laughing and crying, so I guess that's okay. I cheered. This was the perfect way to tie together all the pieces we saw before this and present a very satisfying conclusion while also hinting at what's to come next season. So thank you for that, Todd. Okay. Easter eggs, let's get into it right now. Context is not important. It can be a nod to previous Star Wars, a quote that is familiar to you, kind of like that Dave Filoni episode had a lot of those. or simply objects and Easter eggs. So let's go around each giving one at a time until we run out, and then we'll see where we go from there. But Jeff, I know you on your show, you guys do Easter eggs too, right?
Yeah, we try to find as many as possible. I won't.
How deep do you guys go? Do you guys go like real deep cuts?
Deep enough for I'll pick one. I'll pick 2 quotes. I don't even know if they're references exactly, but they might be. And I won't go ahead and pick the obvious big Easter egg, which ended the episode. I feel like that's
sure.
Might be cheating. There were 2 quotes that I laughed at. I don't think the first one is a reference, but if it is, I loved it. And Moff Gideon had been asked by Grief Karga, like I guess like what do you want, or like what's the end game here? And he said reasonable negotiation. And the first thing I thought of was aggressive negotiations from Attack of the Clones, which I don't know if that's a reference. If it is, that's hilarious. They've referenced the prequels plenty of times. But the one that I'm pretty confident was on purpose was when Moff Gideon's TIE Fighter came back around, the way Cara Dune yelled, "Here he comes," was almost exactly like the way Leia says, "Here they come," about the TIE fighters when we first see them attack Millennium Falcon when they leave the Death Star. That one I'm pretty confident was a direct, like an on-purpose line, because it felt exactly like that, and it clicked immediately. And I actually just went back and rewatched it, which by the way, I continue to forget that all the Star Wars movies, you can just stream them now. I remind myself every day, every time I edit these things, like, oh yeah, I can go back and watch. So those are my 2. I think I don't know if the first one was, but if it was cool. If not, it still kind of reminded me of that. But the "Here he comes" felt exactly like the "Here they come" from A New Hope. So I like that if that was on purpose. Which I when it comes to Filoni and Favreau, it always feels like it is. It feels like it is on purpose.
I agree. The Filoni episode alone, his second episode, I should say, the Tatooine one, I felt like there were a lot of just on-the-nose A New Hope quotes. So you may be right there. All right, James, do you have an Easter egg reference? What do you got?
Let's go with, let's just get the way it starts off, right? Those 2 guys jabbering back and forth. So, it was pointed out in our chat as well, but I thought the same thing. Kind of reminded me of the classic Tag and Bink. Are those characters? Is that their names?
Yeah.
Yep. There's something about the, like, this is what the Imperials sit around and talk about, and it's nonsense and it's funny. And I always feel like it was kind of intentional. And actually, I was thinking about it on my second watch that I think that might be the longest live-action comedy routine, like in Star Wars.
Probably. It's probably the case. You know what it reminded me of, actually, too, was it reminded me of College Humor had a thing called Troopers, where it was like kind of a knockoff Stormtroopers. It reminded me of that. It reminded me of that very popular fan-made Cops spinoff, like the Stormtroopers Cops thing. It kind of had that. It had a very fan-made feel to it, and I thought that, like, that's why I liked it so much. It just, which I guess everything that isn't. Someone said this recently. I forget where it was. Everything that isn't made by George is fan fiction. Like, that's just how that works. But like this does feel very fan-made, and I'm like, you know what? That's cool. Like that's why I like this show. It has a different charm to it.
Yeah,
did you guys catch the actors?
Well, I knew Jason Sudeikis right away.
Yeah, Adam Pally is the other one who doesn't have a whole big career, but someone might know him from Iron Man 3. He plays like the cameraman. That is like has the Tony Stark tattoo and like models his face after him. I don't know. Yeah, if anybody remembers that scene, it's that guy.
I saw him in like you randomly catch like an indie comedy. I saw him in this movie called like Night Owls, which it's a pointless comedy, but I recognized him from there after I looked him up. But
which is sort of a reference to this episode too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I did that on purpose. No, I didn't. Lacey, what do you have for Easter eggs?
Really quick, the biker scouts reminded me of the show Red vs. Blue with Master Chief and Halo and stuff. That's what I thought of as soon as it happened. I was like, this is exactly like 3 seasons of Red vs. Blue. I think the coolest thing to me personally was the Cara Dune being from Alderaan.
Yes.
Which would explain why she joined the cause. She got a tattoo on her face. Like, they destroyed her planet. And then it obviously ties her to Leia because Leia's from Alderaan. But
Yeah,
That was
which
mine.
means she's off-world when she finds out that Alderaan was
Right.
blown up, obviously. Probably already in the mix fighting because she's probably in her 20s, you know. She's not
It's
like
like
a kid.
a revenge plot, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, because that's why it's funny you say that because last episode when she's like, no, I'm not, you're not bringing me back. And he's like, they're Imperial. She's like, I'm in. I'm like, that was too quick.
Too quick. Now you know why. Yeah.
But now you know why. Right, exactly.
Yeah, it makes complete sense now, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I have a few. One, I mean, I'll just point out the troopers trying to do their target practice before they take off. And they're both missing the soda can, like with the BB guns, and they're like he's like shaking his.
It has a
blaster. He's
spray
like,
paint, like an empty
Yeah,
spray
right. He's
paint
like,
can
why isn't
sound
it
effect.
working? Now, one I'll bring up that James, I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but if you are, then I'm stealing it from you. When Baby Yoda, aka Tiny, as we call him here, was holding back the fire, I got those Kanan vibes from the end of Rebels. When he's like kind of keeping the blast away from the crew. So that's the first thing I thought of there. Did you make that connection at all?
No, because that's one of my down points of the episode.
Oh, well, we'll get to that
did
later.
Not like that, you know.
Okay, all right, no problem. Jeff, do you have any others?
I mean, just the little things. Seeing the E-Web was pretty cool. It's such a video game thing. Granted, we saw it in Empire Strikes Back. They were going to try to shoot the Falcon with it. I asked this when we recorded our show. I don't remember if they even got a shot off with it. But they tried to set it up and take down the Falcon. And then I like the Bacta medicine. I thought that was a pretty cool, very, very quick, brief, doesn't stop you in your tracks reference.
Right.
Yeah, that's what IG-11 sprays the back of Mando's head with the Bacta, which obviously we've heard of plenty and seen. I mean, the most prominent thing is Diaper Luke from Empire Strikes Back. So I thought that was I thought that was again, and I this has been part of my I guess my big like speeches about this show is why I like it is Star Wars has these issues in most of their movies, especially recently, and I like the sequel trilogy and I like the one-offs, but of the being too on the nose with references, and Rogue One probably the biggest offender of that.
I agree.
Just everything stopped in your track, like, hey, remember these guys? It's Star Wars. And the Bacta is a good example of like very little, very small, tiny thing thrown in that if you get it, you get it. If you don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't stop you from enjoying what's happening. And so that's they've just done such a good job at weaving that in. And I honestly can't think of one reference this entire series. And maybe I guess it's subjective that literally had me just go, what? Or like, okay, like fourth wall breaking, like Deadpool type stuff, where it's basically explaining to you what this reference is. So those little things I really enjoy.
Nice. James, what else you got?
I don't know how many people caught this because I had to go back a couple times to be like, is that really what he said? But as IG-11 is on the speeder coming into town, they cut to a close-up of the scout troopers right outside, and one of them goes, yeah, the T-16s are faster.
Oh, did he?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Man, they always sneak that in because apparently there's one in the Rise of Skywalker too on Kijimi that I missed. When they talk about like the T-18 or T-17 or whatever. All right.
And then like immediately after that like mumbled line, they go, "What's that? What? Here he comes" or something. So it's real fast. But I was like, I think he just said that, and I went back and listened like 3 times, and I got the line. But
nice.
Yeah, it's in there.
All right. I'll have to go back and check. I've only watched it once, so I got to go back and check these out. Lacey, you have any others?
Well, they made a lot of references to. They finally talked about Jedi and the Force, which I have a lot of questions on why no one knows what the Force is. It's only been like, what?
5 years.
5 years, and no one knows about Jedi or anything. Like Luke Skywalker's still around. It's like weird. And then like the Clone Wars stuff. Night of 1,000 Tears, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of that is new, and some of that is references to old stuff, and it's hard to figure out what they're referring to. It seems like they're
Was that the first Siege of Mandalore direct reference that we get? I forget, because I do know.
I think so.
Yeah, because I was initially, and I don't know about you guys, when they first said the Purge, I just assumed that was the Siege of Mandalore, and it's definitely not. Because the Purge happened while Din Djarin was a Mandalorian, whereas Siege of Mandalore obviously happened a long time ago, Clone Wars era. So that was, I thought so. That was the first like direct reference, which I would imagine we're going to get a lot of flashbacks to that come next season.
When you say direct reference, do you mean in this show only?
Yes.
Because
like,
I'm pretty sure they talk about it in Rebels.
Yeah, no, definitely just because Rebels and Clone Wars for sure, but in this show, I felt like that was the first time we heard them literally say the words Siege of Mandalore.
Which is going to be the plot for the Clone Wars season coming up in the spring. So,
right. It was almost like, advertisement.
It's a setup for, because we're talking about it right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, is it my turn? Yeah, right?
I would just talk about the big one.
I'm going to
talk it.
Well, this is the big one to me because Darksaber, Dark Schmaber, I don't really care. Mando isn't a race, it's a creed, which means Boba Fett is a Mandalorian again.
No.
In canon.
No.
Yep. Confirmed.
I don't go that far.
That's a leap. I think you've made a leap.
Yeah.
Exclusive.
Yeah. No, but I like that they said it's not a race. Huh?
We've known it was not a race.
I know, but the whole idea behind it is that you can't be a Mandalorian unless you are from Mandalore or part of Mandalorian lineage. And that's what kind of scrapped the whole thing that Boba Fett was a Mandalorian, because before this the animated series and stuff, everyone just assumed that's what he was. And then they kind of just said, no, it's affiliated with this planet. And that's where I saw the separation. So now if they're saying you don't have to be from Mandalore or tied to someone from Mandalore, you can be a Mandalorian again because it's a creed and you could just sign up and be, voted in, then to me you can be anything and be a Mandalorian. So that's how I saw it. Well, anyway.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. I don't know. That's tough though. I will say the definition of it. I mean, I think we will get Boba the Fett. I mean, obviously, elephant not in the room, Boba Fett. They never addressed the character at the end of the 5th episode. But I was one of very few people, I believe, who didn't think it was Boba Fett when that character was teased. I just there's no way.
I didn't think it was either.
But now today, this episode convinced me that it is. Because we heard Jon Favreau say he wasn't in Mandalorian, and at that point they had done they filmed one season, they're finishing it up. Now that and I've heard enough of that audio analyzed and the sounds and all that, where I've been slowly convinced, because I was firm that is not Boba Fett, and I thought it was initially Moff Gideon, which obviously it isn't Moff Gideon. So I'm kind of convinced that it is now that we never got the answer. I'm kind of convinced that will be
with
Boba.
Fennec Shand, you mean?
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that they just completely skipped over who that was. Holy cow.
Yeah. I do think I could see them going back to Tatooine, and that's just where they answered that. So I do think that will, your comment on that, I don't know, right or wrong, I think it will be defined now with Boba. I think they're gonna clear that up at some point.
Right. I think fans have been wanting it, but yeah. Go ahead, James.
All I was going to say is that is the perfect time to mention that, too. That's another reason why another notch down on my score for the episode is I felt like there were a couple things that I expected to get answers to, and they just, never addressed it. And I'm like, so is this set up for, Season 2, Season 3 or something, are we going to watch all of Season 2 thinking we're going to get an answer to that, and they just still don't address it? It's it didn't feel like it wrapped up everything as I expected it to. So I was like, and then maybe that's
fair. I mean,
in my own head a little bit, but yeah, that was one of the things. So
that's fair. I mean, it could also be Favreau just being let me just sprinkle this out here, and it's something I can revisit as a big thing I've already set up Season 2, which I've heard. I don't know if this is public or not. I've heard that we were told, I think, that it's halfway through filming Season 2 already. So they'll probably be finishing up in March or so and getting post-production done. But all right, so Lacey, you kind of alluded to it. The Darksaber is obviously a big Easter egg for Star Wars animated fans and stuff. So we can just touch on that briefly, I guess, as the cliffhanger end of the episode.
I've been actually waiting for James to say something, because I feel like when this showed up in the show, I was like, oh, James must be going nuts right now. And then
I
he
agree.
came on here and was like, I hated it. And I was like, oh. All right.
And
He used it as a can opener. What the heck, man?
Yeah.
It's like if Ben Solo showed up and I was like, I hated it.
I'm really torn on the scene because I really like that he has it and it opens up so many more questions about like why doesn't Bo-Katan have it? But I'm also kind of torn because I really thought she was going to be in the episode.
Well, because
she wasn't, and so I'm like, are they going to do that? And they didn't do it, and then I'm like, oh, there's kind of a reference to it, but it's not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. So again, this is that like Last Jedi thing. Like I wrote a little thing in my head, and then when it didn't come true, but I have to step back and go, but I still like that we got a live-action Darksaber. It's a new owner, so there's a big story there. You know, it still sets up defeating Moff Gideon at some point and giving it back to the rightful owners or whatever, you know, or maybe Mandalorian takes it, which is still awesome. So there's a lot that goes into that, but yeah, it's great. Live action Darksaber, who can complain, you know?
Yeah.
That's
Jeff,
awesome.
are you a huge fan of animated, and did you mark out when you saw that thing bust through the TIE fighter?
I was very excited. I was also shocked. It's not something I ever thought would look good in live action. It's such a goofy thing.
It does.
It looks great though. I was stunned. I honestly didn't think we were going to see it because of that. Like I could just have seen them testing it and being like, this is a show breaker. Like people are going to look at this and be like, this stinks, because if you introduce it, it has to be a big thing. Like there's no two ways about it. So I was stunned the second that thing popped through that TIE fighter. I was pretty shocked, which I don't think I've had that moment with this show. Baby Yoda was obviously a pretty big reveal, but there's I mean, I don't know. There's no precedent for that. Seeing that thing as like a fan, I was pretty blown away. I thought it was very cool, and also there's definitely a tie-in. This is not my original thought. This was a thought that was had on. I think this was a thought via someone on our show. We talked about it earlier that they think because Moff Gideon explains that Baby Yoda means a lot to him, and he's wielding the Darksaber, that there is some sort of Sith something connection there, and there is an interest of Baby Yoda's powers and him having the Darksaber. So it does set up a lot there. Now it obviously opens up the door of Jedi and Sith, which I'm sick of. But I think so long as they... If this is what we get with it, the Darksaber, that's cool. I'm fine with that. You know, now if we just start introducing a bunch of Jedi and Sith, like whatever, and that doesn't count for flashback. I'm fine with flashback. Like that's just like that makes sense. But that'd be my only pause. Like that's not a negative for me. But my only pause is like, all right, I don't want too many Sith and Jedi. I'm a little sick and tired of them at this point. And that's kind of why I like Mandalorian.
The cool thing I think about the Darksaber is clearly rooted in some Jedi history, right? But every time it's talked about in Clone Wars and Rebels, it almost has nothing to do with the Jedi. It has more to do with whoever owns this rightfully rules Mandalore and stuff. So it's like our character is going to see that lightsaber in season 2. And almost, in my opinion, it might even lead into like he feels like now that guy rules him.
Yeah, I could.
Moff Gideon wields the Darksaber. I mean, it's a big setup for what could happen in season 2. So I'm interested, and it doesn't have anything to do with the Force.
Well, it also sets up obviously Mando having it as well and ruling the new Mandalore, which I guess we're gonna also. We don't know, and that's for obvious reasons, how decimated Mandalore is, or just like Mandalorians in general. Obviously, most of them are either dead or gone, except for the Armorer, who I'm convinced the Armorer is someone. I don't know who. The Armorer is someone we know. I either whether it's Sabine, I don't know. It just seems so obvious of how ambiguous they're making the Armorer that it just makes sense that it's someone that we've met before. Even if it is Bo-Katan, I don't know. It could be her as well. You are right on that. Yeah,
it's all these like accessories. Like it brings me back to like being a kid when you have the action figures and it comes with this and it comes with that, or like a video game journey where you have to get the armor and then you have to get this. Like Mando's got the body armor in this season. He got his jetpack, and now he's gonna be setting his eyes on that saber. Like he's gonna collect everything that he needs to be like the ultimate Mandalorian. So I find that to be interesting, but. I mean, not too many others in terms of Easter eggs. Grief Karga said scum and villainy. I caught that, which made me think of Mos Eisley. And then the great kind of reminded me of the garbage chute when they had to bust it open to slide down. But anyone have any others that maybe the listeners would like to catch?
They talked about the mind flares a bit. I've seen people speculate that could be the big stupid octopus from
I
Rogue
hate
One.
that thing. Borgullet.
Borgullet, yeah.
Oh, God.
I've seen people speculate that that's what that is.
Stupid Borgullet. I hate it so much.
That wasn't even an
has a
Easter egg, and
tie
that stopped the movie dead.
In Rise of Skywalker, too. I think something about the visual dictionary says something about Borgullet and being connected to the Wayfinder somehow. I can't. I don't have the visual dictionary, but yeah, I looked up Mind Flayer and all I got was Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So
yes,
I don't know.
Stranger Things.
Yes, and that's the other thing I got. Yeah. I also the incinerator stormtrooper was very cool. That was super video gamey.
Sure.
And that's where you mostly see that character, so it was neat to see that. And then my only other thing, everything else is like obvious stuff that I had written down, like Jawas and just them referencing ISB officers and all that. But there were like little like. I don't think they were Womp Rats, though. Granted, I always thought Jawas were native to Tatooine, and I know Womp Rats are native to Tatooine, but we've seen Jawas all over. But there were like little squirrels or rats or something in
lava otters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call them lava otters.
I thought. Yeah, it's funny because I thought because they flashed to Cara Dune looking at those things, and I thought she was going to say something like "Womp Rats," just to tell us that they were Womp Rats, but they didn't, and I was glad they didn't. So it was just like whatever that is.
We're also kind of looking over one other one too. When he was saved by those Mandalorians, and they clearly have the Death Watch symbol.
Oh yeah, they're very much Death Watch. Yeah, he was
very much
Raven.
Death Watch. So which is clearly connected to Pre Vizsla, connected to Bo-Katan again, like with the Night Owls.
Well, Bill Burr and them
stuff.
referenced how bad he was, right? Like they referenced that he was a pretty bad dude at one point, and so it makes sense that he was brought up through Death Watch, which I didn't put it together when I first saw it. I was like, oh, like that is Death Watch, like that is who saves him. Which I don't remember anyone predicting that. By the way, I thought Obi-Wan or someone was going to save him. I just thought it made sense that
a lot of people were saying Yoda would or whatever.
Yeah. So, now that we see it's Death Watch and Mandalorian, you're like, oh yeah, no, duh, like that was it. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Also, I'm very firm team. It's Life Day when that happens. That they're celebrating Life Day. With the
robes.
They're in their red robes. I'm like convinced that's Life Day.
I mean, Favreau's doing everything he can to reference that without pissing people off. He's doing an all right job. And then I guess we'll get into it more when we talk full discussion on the episode. So we have Jason Polensky at Forest JWP who said, what a thrilling conclusion for a fun series. I never thought I would see what I saw, a.k.a. the Darksaber, at the end in live action. Good job not spoiling it on Twitter, by the way, though, Jason. He said 9.5 out of 10 Pedros. Thank the maker, Mando Fando. So thank you for that, Jason.
People were spoiling it like literally 2 hours after it came out.
Vanity Fair, not to throw them under the bus, but they put out an article like
IGN
early
too.
This morning saying like that saber at the end. People are like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Because what other saber are they going to talk about in this type of show? It's not going to be like, Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber. But anyway.
I don't get it.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to the discussion in a second. But first, I know a lot of people are waiting for this. The Mando code. It's time for the final number. So each week I revealed one number of 6 that will help you find your way to enter to win the bounty, which is a Black Series Boba Fett premium electronic helmet, which I didn't know is not going to be available until like March. But either way, you're going to win and get it. Yeah, you'll get it then. But I hope you've paid attention and remembered all these numbers because your mission concludes right now. The final number is 1. So that is the last number of the 6. The numbers were not given in the correct order. So you must take all 6 numbers, put them in the right order, and email them to us at resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. Email us by noon tomorrow, a.k.a. Saturday, and we'll randomly draw a winner from those that sent in the code in the correct order. And the winner will be announced on our Season 1 recap show whenever that is, whether that's next week or in 2 weeks, but we'll announce it then. And
do you have
a
clue of what the order is?
No, and you know why I don't have a clue? Because 2 people already said, I already figured it out. I'm going to... I'm like, all right, you know what? No one's getting a clue then, because they're way too smart, so you're not getting a clue. Okay? That's it. And we're not rushing to announce the winner, because this thing's not going to be available till March for whatever reason, even though it's probably on a shelf somewhere. Forget about it. All right. Let's get into the spoiler breakdown of the... Good luck to everybody, by the way. Make sure you submit those answers by noon tomorrow. All right. Spoiler breakdown of the episode. First, let's warm up the engines by a quick shot, which is our favorite shot of the episode. Each of us, I'm sure some people are going to say the Darksaber, but I'll start with Jeff. What was your favorite shot or moment in this episode?
I mean, it was that last shot. I think that was like one of the best shots so far of the series. It was cool, but that's tough. It's so good that I honestly can't. Actually, I will say IG-11 flying in on the speeder bike was pretty cool. That was I guess more of a clip than a shot. I'm thinking like one shot for him, but yeah, having him fly in from the distance and go into town was pretty damn cool. I will say that, because even if you would have told me beforehand IG-11 would have driven a speeder bike, I'd probably assume that looked pretty dumb.
Right, that's
but
true.
They pulled it off very well. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, without a doubt. Okay, Lacey, favorite shot.
My favorite shot was the flame trooper that is coming into the scene with the smoke and the sunset behind him and the rack focus. It is hands down one of the prettiest shots of the whole season. It is amazing. And they used it in the trailer. And I was like, I know why you use this, because it's such a beautiful shot.
Right. Now, is it all flame? Because I'm so bad with trooper armor. Is all flame troopers have the red? Is
the
that
red
their
stripe? Yeah.
That's their deal?
He is an incinerator stormtrooper, which is a first appearance of that kind.
Okay.
Not a flame trooper, which I don't know really what distinguishes.
They've been calling it both
two,
things, so I'm going to stay with what I said.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said, what did you say, Lacey?
I said flame trooper because that's what they've been calling it. Yeah.
Who called it?
Like multiple people have been calling it that.
Oh. My Google of it for images, when I searched flame trooper, I only got first order flame troopers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever. It's the guy with the flames that's a stormtrooper.
We all know, yeah.
The fire guy.
It seems crazy not just to call them all the same thing.
With the fire.
The guy who burns everything.
He looks like a clone trooper, almost.
More importantly, that rack focus, though.
Yeah, it's good.
Perfect. It was well done.
All right, James. Flame trooper, burn trooper, incinerator, burn guy aside. What's your favorite shot?
I mean, it's that Darksaber one, but I'll pull a different one. I'm going to go with another shot of Moff Gideon, which is there's a specific scene where he is just like laying down the law, and they do this like really long push, and they do the pull focus so that the background moves opposite him. It's kind of a realization type trick that they do with the camera. But in this particular case, I really liked it, and I thought it worked well, and it really sunk in the gravity of how like thought out this character is. Like every word that he says is like knows the whole scenario. So I think that worked. So I really like that shot.
Yeah, I dig that. I mean, he seems like a very established villain in, like we've been saying on the Resistance broadcast, Star Wars has a bit of a villain problem. Because either they bring in new villains and kill them off immediately, or they go back to
or he's a clone
that work, or they're a clone. Yeah, and we said Star Wars had a villain problem before they brought back Palpatine. Then they're like, wow, we got to bring back Palpatine now as our big bad villain. But I like this guy, and I believe him as a villain. I think he has conviction, and he's like, no, I'm gonna like kill you. Like,
and I like that he's ISB because they consider even the Empire considers ISB to be like the worst of the worst, because those guys like did messed up stuff to get the information that they needed to.
I Googled those guys today and tried to look up some canon stuff on that. Yeah. All right, my favorite shot, aside from, because I keep doing Baby Yoda stuff, Baby Yoda having fun while being on the speeder bike. I thought that was cool.
So good. Yeah, with the ears.
I knew John was going to go for it.
But I'm gonna change my tune and say when the shot is of as though you're in that boat on the lava river behind IG-11, and he's walking towards the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I just liked the colors. I liked everything about that shot in that sequence. Because they had an HD a screenshot of that on like the official site as like one of the promo images for it. I just thought it would be such a cool like wallpaper and such a good shot. So I think that'd be mine there. And so let's just have a chat about the episode overall. We're ending season 1. Overall thoughts, did it meet your expectations on closing it out? I know, Jeff, you said it was one of your tops, so why don't you start us off with your overall thoughts on this episode and how it sat in the season?
I think it does a good job at fixing a problem that Star Wars has, and that is killing people. We saw that last week. People really do enjoy Queel. They liked Nick Nolte. He died very quickly and unexpectedly. Same with IG-11. You kill him off. It's a stakes thing, and we hear stakes a lot. Not as much with Star Wars. That's more of like a Marvel thing. Stakes with franchises, and we need to see people die. I mean, I will forever think about that Star Wars documentary. You hear Lawrence Kasdan, Gary Kurtz talk about killing off Han Solo, and how killing off Han Solo in Return of the Jedi would have really set it the stage of like, man, anyone can die. I mean, Harrison Ford thought well, we know now he thought he should have died. He wanted to die in Force Awakens too. That's basically the only reason he came back. And so I think setting that up where we're going to meet a bunch of characters and we're not going to know if they're going to die. And I think any assumption you have throughout an episode should be thrown out the window, because even like the Bill Burr clan, we thought they were dead. They weren't. They're still alive. So this show avoids that problem. Speaking of just Star Wars problems. And it's a small little thing to pull from this episode, because I do like the overall moving of the story. I have enjoyed this series. It has a very action-adventure type vibe to it, where it's a lot of plot in the beginning, and the plot kind of doesn't fizzle out, but it kind of takes a bit of a back burner. It still is advancing. It's still Mandalorian on the run with Baby Yoda, and you meet all these characters, but it harkens back to the Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon type stuff that George built the franchise off of. And I like that for a couple episodes. That's the type of vibe I want, and then we come back to the main plot to round it out. So I was as pleased as I probably could have been with this. Maybe if they would have, I guess, I don't even want to knock it, but if I guess they would have answered that, who was the mysterious figure at the end of the 5th episode, probably would have maybe been a little happier. But that's pretty hard to do at this point, because I was pleased with where this went. And I don't know. I feel like at the end of last episode, you're like, how the hell are they going to get out of this? Like, how do they break out? And so you have that intrigue, you have that suspense, and it sets up an episode where you really don't know what's going to happen. And I didn't think he was going to die, but even when he's sitting there and he's like, you can't take my helmet off, I'm like, well, what the heck? Like, it wasn't predictable for me. I'm like, what? I go, maybe he's going to take his helmet off. Maybe I don't know. It had me on the edge of my seat, which is, again, big, because I enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. I have issues with it, but the thing with that was, like, that felt predictable in a lot of spots, and I wasn't as on the edge of my seat as I wish I would have been. Where this one, like, again, the whole episode, I was like, damn, like, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Sure. And to your point, like, I didn't expect to see Pedro Pascal's face. I mean, going into the series, I'm like, they have to, because you have to humanize this character. There's no way they're going to keep this thing on the main character's head. And then you hear stories like he wasn't on set, he wasn't even in the suit, blah, blah, blah. And then, I heard a rumor like, they may have shot something recently to toss it into the season finale. So I'm like, maybe he is going to pop his helmet off. And boom, there it was. So now you're going to have a lot of fans thinking like maybe he was, people who aren't like in like we are going to think he was in the suit the whole time. And John Wayne's grandson's going to get mad because he's not going to get the credit for it by fans and all that. But I was glad to see his face, because, again, it does kind of like add that layer like that. Oh, okay, there's the guy. Like, it's Din Djarin. We have the name, which Pedro Pascal leaked in an interview. Or not leaked, but he just said it a few months ago and no one really cared. But he's becoming more of a person, even though they still call him Mando. And I kind of like that aspect of this episode. James
I liked
Lacey,
that he showed his face to a droid.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not living, so you can show me. He's like, well, you got me there.
I think it was more than that, though. I still, I did like it, because the whole series he's been saying, I hate droids, I hate droids, I hate droids. So to be the one thing that you show your face to, that you're vulnerable in front of, is the droid.
Yeah, because then he cared about him later too.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't. It was like a Terminator 2 moment. He's like, you can't go. and he steps in the lava. Holy cow! That's like a T2 moment. Good. That's a good point.
I mean, he wouldn't even board a ship.
In the episode.
He wouldn't even board a ship with the
thought
droid
about
in the first episode. They offered that one cruiser with the R2 unit, and he said no. He wouldn't even get on the thing. Yeah,
right.
So it has been I see the face thing was never a problem for me, and like I totally get if it was, but I thought the physical, even just the way he would look at Yoda, the way he would react, give him the toys, it was enough for me. Where like I didn't ever need to see his face. You could just tell by the emotion, the way he talked, and the way he interacted with things and people, it was progressing enough. Which again, I totally get if that's a problem for people. Like I get that. But for me, it was never like, I got to see his face. Because like, now that I've seen it, it doesn't change anything for me. Like, obviously it's nice to see that he's human. But maybe maybe it helps that I know what Pedro Pascal looks like. But it's a nice moment. But like, I already liked the progression of the character. Like, I was already connecting with him.
Somebody asked me like mid-season, they were like, I wonder if we're ever going to figure out what that guy looks like. And I was like, well, I mean, we know who plays him. And they're like, who? And I'm like, Pedro Pascal. And they're like, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, okay. So maybe like in just a certain group of people, we see through the mask, you know.
James, was this over the internet? Someone asked you?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say you should have like Googled a picture of like Carrot Top and sent it to them. And be like, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's Mando.
No, I the only reason I thought that was weird was because I was thinking there would be some sort of like, oh, our clan now can take our helmets off, maybe, or something along those lines. But it was kind of an awkward delivery, I thought, because he says no living thing has ever, and he knows he's talking to a non-living thing. The thing's trying to take his helmet off, and his point is that no living thing has ever seen it. And so the droid comes back and goes, I'm not a living thing. And he goes,
what if?
Oh, yeah. Good point.
What if, to get all deep here, he started seeing droids as sentient and living things and showing his change in how he views them?
I'll take it. I like that. I like what Lacey was saying, too.
I also think it was just clever writing that you got to have a little bit of understanding that the guy's dying. So he's like, oh, living thing. And the guy's like, I'm not living. And he's like, okay. Right. Like, I don't think it has to be a bigger thing.
I don't know.
Favreau explaining to the audience what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I still think, and I know this is like a nitpick, I guess, and that's like a hot topic word right now, but I still think Carl Weathers has a hard time delivering Star Wars dialogue.
What do you mean?
Mando, what are you doing with that, container
Interesting.
thing?
So we have a completely different
We have
take
to
on that.
go.
We think he's great with it. We think he
really?
he cornballs it up so much that it just works for his character. I don't know. I don't know. That's just our view. I get it though. I mean, it's delivering Star Wars lines is not easy. I was not bothered by the Tatooine episode, but a lot of people were.
Sure.
So,
it's just funny. I think when I think of him, it's not so much like people always allude to Chubbs and Happy Gilmore, but it's Apollo Creed and the smooth Muhammad Ali sounding, quick talking, no problem speaking whatsoever type of character, or even Predator Dylan. And then you get him now, and he's just like, I am an action figure, Mando. Hey.
He's very similar to his character, minus like the very on-the-nose humor from Arrested Development, where he plays himself.
Yeah,
he actually reminds me of the non-playable character in Jumanji. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Still haven't
you guys
seen
don't?
it.
Oh.
No.
Yes.
I think Jeff knows. Yeah, he's just like a driver. Oh, you do too? Okay. Yeah, he's just like a driver, and he delivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, it is your job to go to the thing, and so
I still have to see that.
Yeah, it's good.
It's also possible that he's in his 60s, and it's probably not the easiest dialogue to remember. So maybe he's like, line. It's Mando, go get the thing.
But my biggest problem with the episode, I had one problem. My problem was that they actually punched a baby 3 times in this episode.
That was messed up. I agree.
I get one time kind of pushing it a little bit and stop. They straight up punched this thing 3 times, and I straight up was like, ha! Every time they did it.
Right.
I don't understand how they were able to do it.
The last one was obviously the worst, too.
Yeah.
And you hear it make noises when they punch it. Jon Favreau, what are you doing? I hate it.
Pulling at those heartstrings.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm and especially because, babies, puppies, kittens, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Anything baby.
Yeah. Well,
that took some risks doing that. That was the biggest risk Jon Favreau took this season, was punching Baby Yoda several times.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah, you don't do that. That did make me a little uneasy. I knew he was gonna be fine because they're just troopers, and troopers never like win. But
still, punching
I agree.
Baby, I
agree.
I don't know why they add that in there. They didn't need it.
You know, when we had Nick on, he pointed about. I think it was Nick that pointed out that trope about someone standing there, the pointing of the gun, and then getting shot from behind. I was like, they did it again in this episode.
Oh yeah.
It's like they've done that same thing like 6 times.
I said that with Kara, and the episode of Cara Dune, at the village.
Yeah.
Oh right. Wait, when did they do it in this episode?
The battle droid.
Oh,
like it's like standing there pointing the gun at him or whatever, and then
yeah,
boom, gets hit from behind.
Yeah,
and
they
it's a
do. Yeah, you're
Mandalorian.
right. Yeah, they do that quite a bit, a little too much. Almost where you're like, all right, who's taking this person out?
It started with
Another
Baby Yoda,
scene.
the first episode.
Yeah, it's just another scene in this particular episode that I was like, oh, come on, guys.
Now wait a minute, James. Speaking of which, what didn't you like about the fire scene with Baby Yoda?
Oh yeah,
the music.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
I loved the music in
it's
this
coming
episode.
in, and it was like, I felt like, you know that thing that's like that image of like they drop the kid, and it's like, why have you forsaken me, Father? That's what it felt like to me. The baby like raising his hands up, and then like, and they're trying to play this emotional music, and I'm like, it's this little puppet thing, and the editing was bad too. Like one scene he's lifting his head up, and the next it's already up, and I don't know, just the music is supposed to be this emotional music. It's just not working at all. Like laughable to me. Yeah.
He's
like, really?
I think the music has been though, so I think it's been the best part of probably the series. And which is kind of crazy because
I'm not trying to bash the music overall.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this particular scene pulled me out. Yeah.
Well, but Ludwig Göransson's been kind of insane because he doesn't really pull on Star Wars themes at all. And that's very hard to do. That's very hard to make it Star Warsy without it being Star Wars. And it's a vibe. If you've seen Black Panther, if you've seen Creed, it's a very recognizable sound because they're very recent movies that he did.
Right.
But it fits so well. I mean, the theme, I hum it all the time. It's stuck in my head, which I say the same thing about the Ray's theme, but that's John Williams. So that's just not very shocking that he made something that's catchy. But he made a theme here that I just constantly have in my head.
I agree.
It's pretty nuts. It's one of the things that I think because of Baby and love Baby Yoda, great character. I get the memes off people, but Baby Yoda's overshadowed a couple things, and I think one of them is the music. I think that's a pretty damn impressive job because Rogue One obviously pulled a lot of John Williams stuff, but even some of the stuff like when the Hammerhead Corvette hits the Star Destroyers, like I like that scene, but I always felt like the music just wasn't. It was good, but not great. Star Wars, where this show in general, even if you don't like a couple parts, like James, I think you still agree. Like the music has hammered home for the most part some emotion and action where it's just like that's to be not John Williams and to do that with Star Wars is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, at first I was jarred by it because you see the first shot of the series and there's the Mandalorian and you're expecting that classical orchestral sound and you start getting these weird like techno vibes and stuff, and I hear it a lot in the first episode, and then as the season went on I stopped hearing the music, which meant that it was blending in.
I agree with that. Yeah.
It took me a while. And Lacey, you were the same, right? It took you a little while to get on board with it,
No,
right?
I loved it from the first episode to now.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
was on board the whole time.
She was even. I did a trailer reaction with her, and she was like, "The music."
In this episode, the first thing I wrote was the music. Quote, checkpoint is amazing and the baby is amazing. The first 10 seconds of this episode, the music kicks in and you're like, hells yeah. Like, it's so good. It's so good.
Hells yeah.
Hells yeah.
Because like I obviously love it. I just ranted about it, but I would agree with you though, John, on the fact that at first in the first episode, I was skeptical of it. But I think that's a massive, let's get back to Star Wars problems. That's a massive problem of being way too tied down and used to the same old thing.
Sure.
And once you break the mold, and you're like, that's right. This stuff gets better when it's new and different, and pulling on things that we know, but creating things that we haven't seen before. And that's the thing with the music. You're like, you know what? No, it fits, it works, but you're just so not used to it. You're like, what? Where's the theme? Where's the thing I know and thing I like? And once you're able to I guess break away from that, you're like, oh, new Star Wars is kind of cool if they can do different things.
Sure. Yeah.
Speaking of new Star Wars, the R2 droid with legs was weird for me.
Oh, that was
so
a
creepy.
weird,
jarring thing for me.
Yeah,
in
that
episode.
Was bizarre.
I was like, this is all cool, whatever. And then it stands up, and I was like, oh, we're doing gondolas now? Okay. All right. And it's like whistling as it's pushing them down this lava river.
Do you know what's odd to me about that scene? Because I don't mind the droids so much, because I go, okay, somebody repurposed an R2 unit to be able to do this. That there's probably a DIY droid, not like an official gondola model.
Right.
But what I didn't like about that scene is like they're moving forward and they're like, droid, stop moving forward. And then she's like, I said stop. Then she goes over and without even like any hesitation blows the thing's head off, and then they go, we're still moving forward. I'm like, that was the best story you could come up with for this whole scenario. It seems really weird that she like all of a sudden flips on the droid, blows him up, and you're still moving I don't know, it just seemed weird, right? Why not just say, droid, stop moving forward, or I don't know, or stop, I don't know, something. It just seemed odd.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being over complaining, but I was like, why is she blowing its head off now?
Complainy Baney?
She high stress.
Yeah,
Think about me in that situation. I'd blow that thing up in a second.
Yeah. And why wouldn't the droid respond? You know, what was wrong with the droid? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, took too long.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I could go, I mean, why didn't IG-11's legs melt off quicker? Like, there's a lot of things you could say, I guess, but overall, I thought the episode was good. I thought the humor in the beginning was good. I'm a Jason Sudeikis fan, so I thought it was cool seeing him in there. I don't mind the cameos from like actors and stuff. I know, James, you don't like that always in Star Wars, right? But
not necessarily, but
yeah. I thought that was cool, and Jeff, like you said before, the humor was good and it flowed in well, and it wasn't too over the top. So, because I was a little nervous about that with Taika Waititi, because I'm not a huge Ragnarok fan, I guess, but
I am. Oh my god, I've never laughed harder than at Ragnarok.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't know how it would play. Especially, I was like, it's gonna be the season finale, and it's just gonna be this like comic fest. Like, I don't know, but I really dug it, and I like what they've left off with. So. Do you
guys want to talk about the melting stormtrooper?
What melting stormtrooper? When they threw him in the thing?
They throw him in the armory, and his suit and body melts in seconds.
Yeah.
He's not there 5 seconds later, not hanging out the side. His whole body disintegrates and is melted into that thing.
Yeah. She does something we've never really seen though with stormtroopers. I don't from what I can recall, I don't remember seeing a stormtrooper have the helmet broken like that. She smashes the front of the helmet, which is
that happened in something else, and I forget what it was. But somewhere it might have been Rogue One or something, where someone got hit in the jaw. A stormtrooper got hit by something, and there was like half their mask was off, and I can't pull it. I'll hit you up if I remember what it was. But I remember seeing that thing that happened once before. But you're right, that doesn't happen. All right. So do you guys want to look ahead, or just have a little fun quickly speculating on where we think this series is going? We leave off with the Darksaber, Moff Gideon alive, thankfully, still around. So Jeff, kick us off. You don't have to worry about it. We don't know what's happening, so just speculate away and what you think, or where you want us to go, or whatever your thoughts are.
I struggled with this earlier, and I still don't totally know. Moff Gideon will obviously be a big player. I'll just say what I want to see. Obviously Cara Dune is kind of teaming up with Griff Karga, and I hope we see more bounty hunters that we recognize, or more bounty hunter characters. I'd like that for kind of the side quest as they kind of move along here. I don't know what they're going to be going after. I guess it's more of Moff Gideon going after Mandalorian with Baby Yoda. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to know where it goes, and that's kind of what I like, is that I don't have an idea. Is that I don't know what the exact direction of the beginning of the next season will be. It's kind of a mystery box right now, because he's just back on the run, but this time he has someone very serious going after him, not just bounty hunters. But I do like the notion that there is a direct tie with him having the saber and looking for Baby Yoda's powers, is that it takes it into a different realm with the Darksaber that we haven't totally seen on Clone Wars and Rebels. But I also do hope we see some flashbacks. We are very much set up, if we talk about the Siege of Mandalore and we talk about at least leading up to that, we are very set up to see Obi-Wan flashbacks, which it does seem as though they're very keen on tying things in. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see Obi-Wan at some point, just based on the fact that it's going to be a series, and we've seen the tie. We saw the tease to this upcoming season of Clone Wars. We saw a literal tie-in the day before Rise of Skywalker. I again, this is coming from someone who said I don't want to see too many Jedi, but that's why I'm prefacing with I'm okay with a flashback, because I do want to get a little taste of Obi-Wan. Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. Even just like seeing him back in the day with the Mandalorians, like the live action version of that, like that is pretty cool.
That would be cool. Neat. Yeah, especially with the effects they have now that they could pull it off.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting, Filoni could be, telling Favreau as they're making season 1, like, look, season 7 of Clone Wars is going to be this, and we can wrap around it and sandwich it with season 2 of Mandalorian with this. So, I mean, you have Filoni as your executive producer, and he's the guy creating Clone Wars. So it's just, the connection's just right there. My curiosity, and this is just my speculation, has been just all over the place on this. I went from it's going to have zero ties to the Rise of Skywalker because I want it to be separate to now it clearly does with the healing force power thing. All the way to the point where I'm like, does this have anything to do? Because these people were all Imperials, including Werner Herzog, who I'm devastated is killed off. I thought he was great. Every word out of his mouth was fantastic. I want to see the baby. I love that. But, he was, were they looking for this power to help bring back the Emperor? Because it was all about regenerating himself, and that's what this healing power was. And that's the immortality that Palpatine was always after through Plagueis. So I'm still not closing the door on that yet. So that's where I'm hoping we see more of. I am still a little nervous about Baby Yoda just really overshadowing everything, because you're not killing him now, and he's not going anywhere. So it looks like he's going to be here for the long haul.
Can we get a name for him? Can we just get a name so it's not Baby Yoda?
Yeah, Carl Weathers said it had a name, and I don't know if
I want a name. I want to know what his home planet is, and I want to know what his species is. If we get those 3 answers...
Good luck on those, though.
Yeah, I don't want the other 2.
Why? They say that you need to bring it home.
But I like the mystery. George Lucas always liked the mystery of Yoda.
I like the mystery, too, but... okay, forget the other stuff. Can you just give it a name so people can stop calling it Baby Yoda? Like, I'm so sick of it.
It's another year of Baby Yoda.
Yeah. Does it have to start with a Y?
No.
Yaddle.
Anything.
Yoda. Yeah.
He'll forever be Baby Yoda. I think we're just...
Shut up, Jeff. God.
and I'm not even like... there was a point midway through this season, I was like, oh man, like this is a Baby Yoda thing.
Baby Yoda is now Jeff.
There you go. Yeah. Call him Jeff.
He's now
but
Jeff.
There was a point where like, oh man, this is the thing. There's the mainstream thing, and it's always gonna be Baby Yoda, even though the show is great despite the fact he doesn't do much. But yeah, I think we're very far past. And how they have made toys that can be released now is still the most mind blowing thing with the show. It's insane. Insane.
It is.
Of all franchises to not have toys ready. Wild.
Yeah, well, Favreau said like they played ball, and they were Disney was probably pissed. Bob Iger was probably pissed, and he's like, "No, you trust me. You gotta preserve this." And they're like, "All right, Favreau, you made us $5 billion with these other movies. You know what? We'll wait 3 months on the toys." Yeah. But you know what's funny though, Lacey? They could name it and call it like whatever, but like our moms and whatever are still going to be like Baby Yoda. It's baby. No, but yeah, I agree. We need a name at this point. We got to name it. James, where are we going with season 2, man?
Well, I do like that now we have a little bit more of an established overarching villain, right?
Yes.
I don't see that character being killed in the first few episodes of the second season. I think they're setting him up to be someone that people are like, dang, that guy sucks, and he's like something to be a force to be reckoned with. The fact that he has the Darksaber too, I think, is really crazy, and I talked about it a little bit before, but whoever wields that sword is the rightful ruler of Mandalore, and that is a messed up situation, because you have this guy who's fiercely devoted to his what do they call it now? Clan? Is it, or
yeah, he's willing to die for it.
Yeah, and now if he sees that, it's gonna totally flip him, because this is supposed to be his villain, but it's also supposed to be his like religious leader, to a degree. And it's like, man, I don't know what that's going to do for the story in the next season, but I really like that is such a clash right there. That's so cool to me. But yeah, nothing about Yoda, or Baby Yoda. Is he a clone? What were they doing with him? What's that doctor guy?
Pershing.
What's his Pershing? Yeah. What was the story with that? I don't know.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know either.
There might still be more that they could do in season 2, that they could open that up, but it almost feels like they're like, don't worry about that. Like, there's a throwaway line in this episode that's like, or it was in last week's episode, they're like, he doesn't appear to be genetically enhanced or something. And then he turns it to Gina Carano, and it's like, she, however, looks great.
Right.
Like, she does look great.
Is that an Ugnaught hitting on her?
Right.
Like, this angel.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I feel like I need to know what they wanted Baby Yoda for, though. I hope they don't just sweep that under the rug, because they put him under a scanner, and I was like, are they doing a midichlorian measurement as like a this is for you, George? Like, we're bringing back midichlorians? I don't know.
But one day he was on set.
You think so, Jeff?
We'll get the answer. I don't know how quickly we'll get it, but we'll definitely get it. Yeah, they have to. Yeah. It'll crumble the show, basically. It'll make it kind of pointless and stupid. Well, I think they're too smart right now with this. Yeah.
And as we found out today, Favreau tweeted out, and it got 1 billion likes in like 3 seconds, that they're bringing it back officially this coming fall 2020. And he posted a model of a Gamorrean guard, or a thinned out, more svelte, strong Gamorrean guard type of character. So does that say Tatooine to you guys necessarily? A revisit there? Or,
no,
or is that something
says
else?
Coliseum to me.
Gladiator?
Yeah.
Okay. He does have the weird sandals on. Very Maximus.
Yeah. That's what I saw. I saw that and I go, that looks like someone that he's going to have to fight when he inevitably gets trapped and thrown into some sort of like gladiator situation on a planet.
Interesting. All right. So I guess that's pretty much it. Any final thoughts on this episode before we wrap it up?
I think we covered everything. I'm happy.
Lacey,
that's all I can say. I like the show.
Did you say where it was going?
She just said she wanted a name for Baby Yoda.
I just want a name for Baby Yoda. I think you guys basically said where it's going to go. They're going to be running away from the bad guy searching after them while finding their
blasters, ships, hyperspace.
Lacey just wants a lot more Cara Dune and a name for Baby Yoda, I think.
Yeah. Cara Cynthia Dune.
I love Gina Carano so much. Did you guys see her pick up Pedro Pascal? Not Pedro Pascal, probably John Wee's grandson. That was the scene she was talking about, how she kept doing it and picking him up.
Oh, that was
you don't
that
have
scene?
To do this. Yes.
Which she did like how many times? Like 20?
She said she did it like 20 times. And then they were like, you don't have to keep doing this. And she was like, no.
All right, so let me ask you this then, Lacey, because you've been hyping her up since the beginning. Did she, even though she wasn't in...
Yeah, everybody joined my train. Right. I've been there since day one.
Right. Yes. Called it culture, right? So she wasn't in as many episodes as we were hoping for, but did the character live up to what you were expecting overall?
Yes, she was awesome. I think one of my favorite scenes was when she was fighting that guy. Was one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, the MMA fight?
Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I just liked how she was snarky. She was straightforward. I liked when she gave it to Mando in the village, where she was like, you could just stay here. You don't have to do this Mando thing. Like, what's wrong with staying with this beautiful woman? And he's just like, nah, dog.
Is her weapon not an E-web heavy repeating blaster cannon? She's like,
No.
right?
It wasn't an E-web. It was more of just like, I want to say a Tommy gun, but it's not a Tommy gun because it's not
No.
the 1920s. But
It was something out of Predator from like Jesse Ventura, where they just mowed stuff down, like Gatling style.
yeah, it just looked like a machine gun.
No, yeah, because she brought up
felt the
up
same-
that weapon, and
Well,
yeah,
it felt the same
Yeah.
to me when she was inside shooting out as when the Mandalorian went and grabbed that thing.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking
I
about?
think
He
there
went and grabbed it.
was, yeah, and I think that there was a moment where she's like, "I can't leave you here." That I was like, are they hinting that eventually there could be a romance going on? Like,
Right.
because there was this moment that it was a little bit more than friendly.
yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I like that they're just friends. I know everyone likes to ship people and all these things. I like that they're just friends.
Yeah.
So I hope
For
that
now.
dynamic stays the
Yeah, I
same.
would
But
not
I
like
think
that.
Gina, yeah, I think
Would not
Gina's
be a fan.
amazing. I think she did a great job. I would love to see more of her in season 2. I don't think I got enough of her in the first
agree.
season, but I think they were trying to set up a lot of plot lines that they needed to space it out a little bit. So the other thing I hope for in season 2 is that the episodes are 49 minutes each, and they're not these 23-minute episodes like they were in season 1. I was
That's fair.
pumped to see a 49-minute time for this episode.
I agree. I was too. That was the first thing I noticed when I popped it on and checked.
Yes.
So I agree with you.
I was like, yes, 49 minutes.
Yeah, just sit back and just be like, all right, this is gonna be a slow
Yeah.
burn. Let's go.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, guys. This has been our longest Mando fan show, but because we had to wrap up a lot of things. And
Longest episode, longest recap.
yeah. First off, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I know you're under the weather. I appreciate you stepping up to the plate and having your Michael Jordan game on the Mando fan show for us. So why don't you let everyone know, if they don't already, where they can find you on Twitter and what you do with LCB and all that kind of thing.
Yep, movie podcast, Lights, Camera, Barstool. Just a classic run-of-the-mill movie pod. Talk about news, review movies, and then you can find me at Jeff D. Lowe, at Lights, Camera, Pod on Twitter. All that. We're not that serious. I'll put it that way. But we do our own breakdowns and recaps as well.
Right.
And I think I'm about to start binging Rebels and Clone Wars again. That's my last word. I'm very excited to do that. I'm very excited for Clone Wars to come back.
Yes.
On Disney Plus. I forgot it was February, which now seems kind of far away, but still.
Right.
Very pumped for new Star Wars content yet again.
Yeah, right on. James, how about you, buddy?
You guys know Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks. That's the best place to talk to me about Mandalorian, Star Wars, Rebels, Clone Wars, all that stuff, right?
And Apple.
Oh, Apple, of course. Yes.
Yes, always. Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, where I love Gina Carano.
Yes, you do. And you would love for her to punch you in the face.
I would. You know what? There are a lot of people I would let punch me in the face, but she's definitely at the top of the list.
She would not be on the top of my list, for sure.
You know what?
Yeah.
If she knocked me out, I'd be like, so be it. I had this moment.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, hoping nobody punches me in the face, and over at StarWarsNewsNet.com every day. And you should be going to Star Wars Newsnet for all your Star Wars news anyway. You guys can find us on the Resistance broadcast every Monday and Thursday. We'll be back on the Resistance broadcast officially back with regular episodes on Monday, January 6th. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank our patrons. We wouldn't be able to do this show without you guys. So patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Thank you all so much for all of your support, especially our generals. That is Carmelo, Brian Shalito, Andrew Staley, Neil Lowry, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Risi, JG Kars, Seth Kime, Micah Harrison, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you so much for all of your support. You're the reason why this show happens. Can't thank you enough. Thank you to everyone who has been a Mando Fando with us on this 8-episode run of the Mando Fan Show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon. We're going to do one more episode where we recap the entire season. I believe Clayton Sandell from ABC News is going to be joining us to do that. We're not exactly sure when we're doing it, but it'll be soon, so don't worry about that. Good luck to everyone who entered the Mando Code contest. And again, we'll see you on the Resistance broadcast real soon. So until then, Happy New Year, and we'll see you around, kids.